Hey, good evening, brothers and sisters. So, here's a new video: the three major periods of world history as found in Scripture. The information here is a condensed version of what is detailed in Scripture concerning the chronology of the world and history according to the Septuagint. This is to help give the initiate a quick overview of how much time the Old Testament, intertestamental, and New Testament eras cover. And the reason why knowing such information is key is because we await the second coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, who promises all who make it to the first resurrection will not suffer the second death. So, here, as you can see in this first table, there are 5,570 years covered from Genesis to Revelation. And as you can see in row one, I have the historical periods. Row two, I have the years covered. Row three, the historical persons of interest are also covered. And then in row four, you have the books which cover these time periods. So as you can see under the second column, labeled Old Testament, it covers 5,066 years, and it covers all of the people beginning from Adam and ending with Darius or Darius, however you want to pronounce his name. But this Darius is the Persian king in which the Second Temple was finally completed. Okay, so Cyrus was the one who originally gave the order to rebuild Jerusalem and the temple. And then there were a lot of delays in between those those decrees, but finally Jerusalem and the Second Temple were rebuilt in the days of Darius. And the books of Genesis to Malachi cover the whole Old Testament period. All right. And then you have in column two, you have the intertestamental period, which is 404 years, and they continue from Darius to Augustus Caesar. And Daniel, the book of Daniel covers this period. And finally, in column three, we have the New Testament, which covers 100 years of history. And it continues from Augustus Caesar all the way to Domitian. And Domitian is the emperor who banished the apostle, not the apostle John, but Domitian is the one who banished John. Actually, yes, John the apostle to the Isle of Patmos. Okay, and that's where John received the revelation from Jesus Christ. And so the books that cover this period are none other than our New Testament books, starting with Matthew and ending in Revelation. Now, just a quick side note, as you could see at the heading of Table 1, um, these numbers are confirmed by the LXX or the Septuagint. Okay? The Septuagint is the only one that confirms these 5,500 plus years. All right. So, going back to the Old Testament period, I want to make this quick note here. So, the way you arrive at this figure 5,066 is, well, one, there are 5,000 years from creation to to the time that Darius the Mede becomes king and kills the Babylonian king Belshazzar. Okay? Because Daniel receives the vision of what's going to happen during the intertestamental period and at the end of days. He receives these apocalyptic visions during this time. And so Darius the Mede rules for 17 years. And Daniel is also told that it would take 49 years from the decree of Cyrus to rebuild Jerusalem and the temple for their construction to be completed. So you add 49 years or 7 weeks, and that's how you get the 5,066. And then when you add the 404 years, okay, Christ is born during that time. Specifically, Christ is born at the close of the intertestamental period. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, intertestamental is the time of history between the Old and New Testament. All right. But for simplicity's sake, just just understand that the book of Daniel covers that period. Okay, he prophesies greatly about it, and then finally, 100 years later from the birth of Christ, all right, the New Testament covers the 100 years, so that gives us the 5570. All right, moving on. So concerning the intertestamental period, one must read the following chapters of Daniel in this exact order to understand the true historical context it is written in. All right. So we have first up, we want to read Daniel's chapter 1 through 4 because this is concerned with King Nebuchadnezzar. And then Daniel's chapter 7 through 8 and chapter 5 deals with his son Belshazzar. And then you have Daniel chapter 6, 9, and 11, okay, which cover the rule of Darius the Mede. And then finally we have Daniel's chapter 10 and 12, which deal with the rule of Cyrus the Great. And so let me turn and open up the Bible app here real quick. So a lot of people, when we get to the book of Kings and the prophets, they ignore a lot of the opening lines of the chapters to their own detriment because they give us key historical points to work with. So here in Daniel chapter 1, it says, "In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God." Okay. So Daniel and his 3 friends are among these captives, okay? And Daniel's telling us that they were taken captive in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah. So let's actually go there. All right. So here in 2 Kings 23, verses 34 to 37, or actually, yeah, I guess we'll read it. "And Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim, the son of Josiah, king in the room of Josiah his father, and turned his name to Jehoiakim, and took Jehoahaz away, and he came to Egypt and died there. And Jehoiakim gave the silver and the gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and the gold of the people of the land, of everyone according to his taxation, to give it unto Pharaoh Necho. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Zebudah, the daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, to all that his fathers had done. Okay, go to the next chapter. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years, and he turned and rebelled against him. Okay, so here Daniel tells us that King Nebuchadnezzar came up in the third year, came up to Judah and surrounded it in the third year of Jehoiakim. And then here in 2 Kings, we read that Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years, and he turned and rebelled against him. Okay, so plus 3 years. Okay, that brings us to the 6th year of of Jehoiakim, but this is also the third year of this particular Nebuchadnezzar. And then we read, and the Lord sent against him bands of the Chaldees, and bands of the Syrians, and bands of the Moabites, and bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of the Lord which he spake by his servants. Keep reading on further. In verse 6, so Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiachin his son reigned in his stead. All right, and then it says, Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he began to reign. This is verse 8. And he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months, and his mother's name was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father had done. At that time, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against the city, and his servants did besiege it. And Jehoiachin, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother and his servants and his princes and his officers, and the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign. And he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon, king of Israel, had made in the temple of the Lord, as the Lord had said. All right, so he carries away a lot of captives, and this happens in the 8th year of his reign. So again, the first year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign coincides with the third year of King Jehoiakim. Okay? King Jehoiakim serves Nebuchadnezzar for 3 years. So this brings us to the 6th year of Jehoiakim, which is also the third year of King Nebuchadnezzar. All right, so then Nebuchadnezzar comes and puts down the rebellion of Jehoiakim. All right, and this continues, and Jehoiakim and the people of Judah become subject to him for the next 5 years. So plus 5. Now we're in the 8th year of Nebuchadnezzar, and then this is also the 11th year of Jehoiakim. All right. Then we read that Jehoiachin, his son, he rules only a total of 3 months. So you have 12 months, okay, but he only rules 3. So divide that by the 12 months, so that's 0.25. So we add this to the 11, we add these to the 8 years of Nebuchadnezzar. All right, that gives us 8.25, or 8 years and 3 months. So after his 3-month reign, that's when Nebuchadnezzar um, takes him and his mom and all of the um, princes and important people of Judah out of Judah and Jerusalem, and he takes them into Babylon. Okay, and this is when Jehoiachin goes into imprisonment. So all that to say that this is how you make sense of what Daniel said in the first chapter. Okay, and this is important to know because here at the end of Daniel 1 verse 21, we also read that, and Daniel continued even unto the first year of King Cyrus. So Daniel lived to see many different kings and served under different kings. So here in chapter 2, we read, in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. So now, um, since we understand that the first king Nebuchadnezzar, okay, he wouldn't have taken Daniel and his friends into Jerusalem until the 8th year of his reign. We know that this is a different Nebuchadnezzar being talked about. All right. And here, this second chapter is, I won't read all of it, but this is where Daniel interprets the dream of the giant statue and the various kingdoms that they represent and the coming of Christ's millennial kingdom. And then here, Daniel chapter 3, all right, King Nebuchadnezzar, in hopes to thwart the fulfillment of the dream, he makes a giant image made completely out of gold. Then finally, in chapter 4, we get to the latter part of King Nebuchadnezzar's reign, and he gets prideful. And Daniel, and he has his disturbing dream. And Daniel tells him that he's going to be made to live like an animal for 7 years. Now that brings us to Daniel chapter 7. Because look, when you turn to Daniel chapter 5, here it says, Belshazzar the king made a great feast, 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine. But it doesn't tell you, like, how long he's been ruling. Okay? And at the end of Daniel 5 in verse 31, or 30 to 31, it says, in that night was Belshazzar the king of the Chaldeans slain, and Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. So Darius the Mede was 62 years old when he killed Belshazzar and took the kingdom of Babylon. All right, so clearly this is at the end of Belshazzar's reign. All right. And then it says, it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom. All right. And then here in chapter 7, it just goes, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream. Okay, well, hold on. Chapter 5, Belshazzar was already killed. So this is why I was highlighting to you guys, you want to read these specific chapters of Daniel in this order. Okay. So here, the first apocalyptic vision that Daniel has, which is the one of the four beasts, it occurs in the first year of Belshazzar. So what we can infer from the text is that by the time you get to Daniel chapter 4, okay, by the time you get to Daniel chapter 4, this is when King Nebuchadnezzar goes into his state of madness for 7 years. And so while he's in his state of madness, his son Belshazzar is reigning in his stead. And so Daniel receives the first vision, apocalyptic vision, in Belshazzar's first year. Okay? So I'm not going to read all of this. And then here in Daniel chapter 8, we see in the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. All right, so here's the vision of the ram and the goat, and then I'm not going to read all of it. And then that's where we would have Daniel 5, because now here is the end of Belshazzar's reign. This is his 7th year, even though it's not explicitly stated. This is what we infer from the text. Okay, and when we read in verse 10, it says, Now the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house, and the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor let thy countenance be changed. There is a man in thy kingdom, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And in the days of thy father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, was found in him, whom the king Nebuchadnezzar thy father, the king, I say, thy father, made master of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. For as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpreting of dreams and showing of hard sentences and dissolving of doubts were found in the same Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation. So here, Belshazzar's mom is the queen mother, and she's ruling alongside her son. And notice that Nebuchadnezzar is declared to be his father, and she also still calls Nebuchadnezzar the king. So this helps us confirm further that Belshazzar was reigning in the place of his dad while he was in madness. Okay? And then here in verse 29, after Daniel successfully interprets the handwriting on the wall, then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold about his neck, and made proclamation concerning him, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. So the first ruler is his father Nebuchadnezzar. Belshazzar is reigning in his father's absence, so he's the second ruler. And then Daniel is the third ruler. That's how you make sense of the text. All right, so here Darius the Mede finally kills Belshazzar. All right, then here's the beginning of Darius's reign. Daniel is made one of the 3 presidents over all the princes of the kingdom. Okay? And then, whoops, why does it keep doing that? Ugh. Then finally, when you get to Daniel 9, it says, In the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans. In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years whereof the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. All right, so this is when Daniel receives the vision of the 70 weeks. Okay? Going on to chapter 10, chapter 11, we read in verse 1, Also in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. So here Daniel's receiving another interpretation of apocalyptic vision that he's having. All right. And then here, chapter 10, In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar. And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long, and he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. All right, and then the continuation of that thought in chapter 10, okay, leads us to chapter 12. So, this is how you read the book of Daniel in proper chronological order, and it'll help you understand the prophecies, okay, when you pay attention to it like this. So, Daniel, like basically all of the apocalyptic visions that Daniel receives throughout the whole book, it's covering the whole it's covering this whole period right here, this intertestamental period and the end of days. That's what Daniel is covering for us. Okay, and then by the time you get to the book of Revelation, John is only concerned with the last 7 years of the world and the millennial reign of Christ and then the final judgment. All right, so during the reigns of these kings, Daniel prophesied of the kingdoms and events following Babylon. So we have Babylon, which covers the kings from Nebuchadnezzar to Darius the Mede. And then we have the Medo-Persian kingdom, which covers from Darius the Mede to Alexander the Great. And then we have Greece, okay, that covers the kings from Alexander to Augustus Caesar. And then we have the United Roman Empire, which is covered from Augustus to Diocletian. And then we have divided Rome, which is Diocletian to the Second Coming. Okay, that is represented by the feet of iron mixed with clay. And then finally, you have the Millennial Kingdom, which cover the period from the Second Coming to the Final Judgment. Okay, so Daniel chapter 2 talks about all of this. And then Revelation talks more specifically about the millennial kingdom. All right, and the Great Tribulation. So in this final and second table, there are 572 years from Augustus Caesar to the millennial kingdom. Okay, so those cover the years 5428 to 5979 Anno Mundi, or the years from creation, and then 5979 to 6,000 years from creation. All right, so from Augustus to the birth of Christ, that's 42 years. So let's add these up. 42 from the birth of Christ to his death, that's 30 years. And then from the death of Christ to Diocletian, that's 254 years. And then from Diocletian to where we are today, that's 225. And then from the present time to the second coming, that's 21 years. So that's how you get the 572. So notice also 5428 plus the 42. Okay, Christ is born, plus 30. He dies at 5500 from creation, plus 254. That brings us to the year of Diocletian. And then plus the 225 from then to our present year. And then 21 years. Okay, that's where you get the 6,000. So if you want to convert these years, so all you do, you take the current Anno Mundi year and you subtract 5,470 years. Okay. 5428, for example, you subtract 5470. That brings you to 42 BC, as you can see here on column 1 of table 2. And then when you add the 42 years, okay, it brings you to 0 BC. So if you want to convert from the Anno Domini or BC dates to Anno Mundi, you just add 5,470 years. Okay, so this brings us to the birth of Christ. 30 years later, 5,500. Subtract 5,470, brings you back to 30 AD. Okay, now we add 254, brings us to 284 AD, which is the beginning of Diocletian's reign. If you want the Anno Mundi date, you add 5,470, brings you to 5,754. Okay. Now this is going to be for another video, but notice how the current Jewish year, or the year of creation, on the rabbinic calendar, starts at 3761 BC. Okay, and we are in 2023. So you do 3761 plus 2023. That brings you to the current Jewish year of 5784 from creation. So if you want to go back to the rabbinic date, you do 2023 minus 5784, brings you back to their year of creation. And you add that back to get back to our current year. But notice how 5784 is only 30 years longer than what we have on the numbers of the Septuagint, because according to the Septuagint years, this is the year that Diocletian began to reign. So 30 years later brings us to the beginning of the 4th millennium AD. So this draws suspicion and doubt to the rabbinic calendar. There's got to be something off with it, but that's for another video.